We are diving right into the video, going through the tutorial by SquareX. By the way, he's a really cool guy, makes awesome mods, and is very humble. Now the tools required will be the EMD FBX by Dario. There are two versions in the modding community. Leaders in Dario for model edits, and Ulganex is for animation edits. And then there's the FBX EMD, the no flip version by Dario. You can find that inside the Discord server, the Citadel, and the tools channel. It's important to explain the EAN is the animation file, the ESK is the skeleton file. Both the animation and the skeleton file communicate with each other. One can't work without the other. The dyt.env, which I'll refer to as dyt, has the main colors for the model, environmental colors, and controls how the line shows on the model. The index 0.0 is for base form colors, index 0.02 is for the transformation colors, and 0.01 is the transition color. Now the EMB file contains all of the textures for the model, and then the EMD is the actual model, and then the EMM controls quite a good bit. You can change the texture index here, that's used for the EMB. You can also change the name to match the model name in the EMD file. You can also set colorable parts in the name section by adding CC00. You can change the shader type used for the model, and then down here at the bottom you can change the color ramp used for the material. Alright, so let me explain the setup that you should do. Two empty folders, one to store the vanilla files, and then another for the model edits. Now this process is right before you go into Blender, so you need to select both the EMD and the ESK. Make sure they're both selected, and then drag it over to the EMD FBX file, and then you get a new file .emd.fbx. You'll see it here, and then this file will be imported into Blender. Also, it's recommended to check what the material IDs are. I recommend go back to your vanilla files, and you'll see here. Let's open it real quick, and I just take a quick note of those. I keep it saved in my vanilla files, and then I'll need to mess with it later on, because after we change the model, they will set to a default of 0. If there's multiple material IDs in the EMB, you'll want to change that afterwards. But you're inside Blender, you'll see this cube here, as you can simply delete with the delete button on the keyboard. Now you want to import your FBX file. Over here to import FBX, make sure the model is in the correct position. I hit 0, and then 1, 7, 9. Now I keep hitting 6 until it's standing upright. Now most of the time, I will hide this skeleton. For this quick and easy edit, I'm just going to hit A while I'm in object mode. Then I'm going to hit Ctrl J, and it will combine all of it. Again, make sure the skeleton is selected. And then that's the only edit I need to make inside Blender. So what I'm going to do now, you'll come over here, and you will sometimes have a EMD FBX mesh node dot 123 as an example. Any of these have a few numbers on the end. Make sure you delete the numbers on the end, and then you are ready to export. So what you want to do is make sure you are in object mode, and then highlight everything, including the skeleton, and then go over here to export. And then make sure you have the right line bookmarked, which I highly recommend you to do as well. It makes such a huge difference. Makes editing much easier. I don't need to check these settings every single time. Just make sure you always select your Zenris 2 bookmarked export settings. Alright, so then once you return to your model edit folder, you'll see here that you have a new FBX file. I'm just going to take this FBX file over to the FBX EMD, and then if you did it correctly, you'll overwrite one EMD file. So you'll see here mine was overwritten. One thing I want to mention here is, like I said before, your material ID list default to 0. Now I don't want all these to be 0. I'm going to need to change these to be different values based off the EMB index, and I can explain that later in the video. Alright, so now you're ready to test model inside the Zen Viewer. Now, straight off the bat, I can already tell that the first part is correct. I can actually see the model. Now, if I can't see the model, then I would just need to turn the camera around and just look right in front of me. And the model is most likely just in a huge view. And all you need to do is just go back and make sure you use the right export settings inside Blender. Now since I can see the model, now I need to test the animations. So I just drag the bust to the skeleton, double click on any of these, and now I can see that the animation is correct. So now I know the export was done correctly. Now my face is all white here because there is no color ramp inside the DYT EMB for this material. So for now I'll just set it to the to be a different material, just so I can see any mistakes. Now, if the model does not move in sync with the animation, that means that you either forgot to include the skeleton when you first imported into Blender, although I doubt you did that, right? You're watching, you know not to do that, right? If it doesn't move in sync with animations, even though you know for a fact that you did include the skeleton inside Blender, you forgot to include the skeleton when you exported from Blender. So all you need to do is make sure you're in object mode, make sure you can see the skeleton, and then select the model, just hit A, and it will select skeleton, and then you can just use the export settings again. If you did forget to include the skeleton the first time, then you will need to do all of your Blender edits again. I'm going to go over a brief overview of the final edits that you'll need to make in order for your model to actually look good inside the game. So let's start with the DYT. So again, as I mentioned before, you need to make sure that each ramp is set to a material. That's one of the reasons why the face is white. And then what you need to do is you then need to add textures inside the ENV for your new model. Now that can be a little tricky depending on what you did. That's for someone else to explain. In all honesty, I do not know how to UV edit. I avoid it. I just try to make my edits match what's already available from the game. Alright, and then for the EMD, you want to make sure that each has the correct name, and then that those names match what is inside the EMM, which I'll show you here in Notepad++. Each one will match the name of the EMD, and that's the main reason why that the face was all white, because the material ID name was not inside the EMM. So it's all added here, and then down here at the bottom, you see that you can colorize your part, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video. And then you also want to make sure that the DYT ramp is set to the correct material index. And then speaking of the material index again, let's go back over here. And as I mentioned, your material ID will be different. You saw earlier that these were all at 0. Now they are all named accordingly based upon the EMB index. So this will all match well, and then it will actually look good in the game. And if you do need some more tips on how to mod, as they just do, feel free to watch this video, and I'll see you guys next time.